Hello and welcome back to the Health and Safety Digest, a special podcast by Astutis. And as ever, I am your host, Toby Howell, digital content writer at Astutis. And today we are talking about NIBOSH, the NIBOSH diploma, because NIBOSH have revealed the new May 2023 NIBOSH diploma specification. And we have a name change. It is now the NIBOSH Level 6 Diploma for Occupational Health and Safety Management Professionals. It's quite the mouthful. And to run through the new specification, we have called in Astutis Technical Director Brenig Moore to decipher all the changes and what they mean for you, the learners. So firstly, Brenig, thank you for joining the show. How are we?
Very well, thanks Toby, and you?
I am delighted to finally be able to decipher all these new changes to the new specification, because it is a big change. It's a big change. And we'll just get cracking. One of the main reasons for the new specification is through NIBOSH's partnership with their new course accreditor, Ofqual. What can you tell us about the move for NIBOSH to go to Ofqual, and what kind of impact does it have on learners?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, one of the key drivers for this is IOSH's restructuring of their membership requirements last year. And as a result of that, they will now only accept regulated qualifications as a route to membership of IOSH. Now, historically, NIBOSH has worked with the Scottish Qualifications Authority, or SQA, to regulate its qualifications. And the SQA regulates its national qualifications. All of its international qualifications have been to exactly the same standard, but the SQA's reach doesn't extend overseas. The SQA is only able to regulate qualifications and certify qualifications that have been assessed in the UK. So that created a problem, in that a lot of international learners getting into the health and safety profession will, of course, want membership of IOSH, and IOSH was no longer able to accept the NIBOSH International Diploma. So a big problem that needed a resolution, and the way it's been resolved is that for the diploma qualification only at the moment, NIBOSH has got the course re-regulated by Ofqual, and Ofqual is able to regulate and certify qualifications that have been sat overseas. So it fixes that problem.
Brilliant. I'm glad it's fixed. And even though you kind of alluded to it there in that question, could you peel, past the curtain for us and tell us maybe why this new spec has come about?
Yeah, well, again, I think definitely the main driver is the need for international learners to be eligible for IOSH membership. But another thing that needed to be addressed, I think, as a result of the experience with the new syllabus and the new assessment methodologies, is that it was a little bit cumbersome. We were looking at very long assessment periods, huge pieces of work being submitted, 80, 90, 100 pages, which then take an awful long time to assess effectively, which makes the whole assessment process quite congested and quite difficult to manage within the timeframes available. So the opportunity has been taken to look at streamlining that assessment process a little bit as well.
Didn't even think you could hand in assessments that long, Bren. That's news to me.
I've marked a few, Toby, that would scare you. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what was the longest one you thought you'd maybe marked? But that might be calling deep inside the book.
No. For Unit 1, definitely over 100 pages.
Wow. Well, maybe those days are over, Bren.
Which is why they split it into 2 papers to share the marking load.
There we are.
But we're refining it further now.
Interestingly, as you say, one of the huge benefits of this for our international learners is the integration of recognised IOSH membership. And what do you think the benefits are for those who might not be aware of holding IOSH membership are?
Okay, another good question. I mean, speaking as a chartered health and safety practitioner, member of IOSH, myself. One of the benefits is, of course, you get membership of the largest professional body for health and safety practitioners in the world, and you get some pleasure, I guess, out of the fact that you are acknowledged by your peers as meeting, the standards of the profession. You are now seen to be at a level where, in the first instance, obviously after completing your NEBOSH diploma studies, you'll get graduate membership, but that will then set you on a path to chartered membership. And like I said, full professional standing amongst your peers within the profession. Other benefits as well, of course, it does give you a structure and a route for maintaining your continuing professional development going forward, which is useful. You shouldn't just complete a professional qualification and rest on your laurels. The world evolves and changes around us, and we need to keep up to speed. We need to keep pace with the developments, and the fact that I passed my NEBOSH diploma back in 1992, I think it was, is no indication of my ability to perform here in 2023 unless I've been actively engaged in personal development and keeping up to date along the way.
There's always more to learn. Always more to learn,
yeah. Every day's a learning day.
Every day's a learning day at Astutis.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things that I quite like about the May 2023 specification update is that, as NEBOSH have reiterated, there has been no changes to the course syllabus or the learning outcomes, which I think is really quite a huge mainstay for those currently learning. But my next question was going to be around the assessment phase, because this is where I think we'll both agree where the majority of the changes are or have taken place. The big change for the assessment phase is the reduction in the hours in the phase. What can you tell us about that?
We've mentioned that one of the benefits of the transition was that NEBOSH and Ofqual have taken the opportunity to streamline the assessment process somewhat, as it was seen to be quite cumbersome. So again, up until this point, the Unit 1 assessment would have been marked out of 550 marks and then converted to a percentage. And that assessment would have been sat over a 6-week window of opportunity, would have taken about 60 hours of a typical learner's time, and many learners would have spent a lot longer on it, and may well have generated, answer books, 70, 80, 90 pages, even the odd one over 100 pages I've seen. So big volumes of work, big challenges in terms of managing that assessment process. Units 2 and 3 were a little bit shorter, 4-week window of opportunity, around and about 40 hours of work expected, and they are purely assessed around a workplace scenario, and they, up until this point, would be marked out of 375, and again then converted to a percentage. So the marks available are going to be reduced from 575 to 300 for Unit 1, and from 375 to 175 for Units 2 and Units 3. Fewer questions, fewer marks available, less hours required to work your way through the process. So, as I said, we've seen that in terms of 6-week and 4-week exams dropping down to 4-week and 2-week exams.
I was just going to say, I appreciate the fact that you've been able to process a lot of information there into a very, very nicely spoken stanza. So I do appreciate that, Bren. But my next question was going to be surrounding the fact that when you have those changes to the assessment phase, the reduction in question, the reduction in hours, naturally you're going to have one or two people ponder the question as to whether it could potentially be an easier diploma now than under the previous specification. What's your viewpoint on that assessment?
That's a very interesting question. I don't think it would be an easier assessment for anyone. The level of assessment hasn't changed. It's still a level 6 qualification. The means of assessment haven't changed, and it's still an open book examination. So no change from those perspectives. I think if you know your stuff, if you have studied diligently, given some thought to relating theory to practice, understand the content you've covered in each of the 3 units, then going into the assessment process, other than it's going to be a bit shorter, a bit more efficient, you probably won't see much of a difference. I guess an interesting side consideration is that in any examination, you're being examined on the syllabus you've studied. The syllabus is designed. There's prescribed content you need to cover. There are assessment criteria and learning outcomes that determine what you can and can't be assessed on. And in any given examination, you're only ever going to be assessed on around and about 20-25% of what you've actually studied. So you could take a negative view and think that you're wasting a lot of your study time because you're never going to be assessed on it. But it's real world content that is handy in practice, and you need to know if you're going to function effectively as a health and safety practitioner. So as I said, I think the basic premise of, if you know your stuff, if you're comfortable with your understanding of the content and your ability to apply that to a given scenario, there's no impact in terms of, is the assessment going to be easier or more difficult? It's going to be more efficient, it's going to be quicker. And statistically, I guess you could argue the odds of having a question that you really like coming up are reduced because of the more condensed nature of the assessment. But fundamentally, if you know your stuff and you're going into the assessment well prepared, there is no advantage or disadvantage associated with the reduction of marks and examination hours.
Well, I'm sure that will alleviate concerns. Thank you for that, Bren. My final question, and then I will let you be free, merely concerns those currently studying the course. We've had a number of questions about, well, I'm currently on the diploma, on the previous specification. What does that mean for me? So in terms of that, what do the changes to this specification mean for those current diploma learners studying on the July 2020 specification?
Okay. Well, again, obviously we've got many learners who are midway through their studies at the moment, and the way the examination program is scheduled at the moment, we have unit 1, then unit 2, then unit 3 every other month, and then the same again. So we've got learners starting their unit 2 exam next Wednesday, which will be the last of the current SQA regulated exams, and then the next exam, which will be a unit 3 in July, will be an off-qual exam set to the off-qual standards. So if this exam in May is your last unit, is your last exam, you've studied and been examined on units 1, 2 and 3, you've completed them. If you pass them all, you'll be awarded an SQA certificate. If you've passed 1 or 2 units and you're going over this transitional period, so your next exam is going to be an off-qual exam, then your SQA units will be recognised, they will port over in a seamless manner, and then you finish the course with off-qual accredited units, and you get an off-qual accredited certificate upon completion of your studies. So it should be seamless. Learners shouldn't really notice any difference. As we said, exams from July forward, regulated by off-qual, shorter, fewer marks available, but in essence exactly the same sort of assessment, same style, same look, same feel, same processes. Once you've got your 3 units in the bank, you're qualified for your diploma.
Fantastic news. I'm sure that as well will alleviate concerns, because of course to those already on the course there was a moment of limbo upon seeing the announcement from NIBOS, so I'm sure that will ease those concerns. Thank you very much for stepping in today, Bren, and clearing up the air for those who were wondering upon those answers. We have content on our website that concerns this new May 2023 spec, so go to www.astutis.com. You can find our socials, just type in Astutis and you will find us there. So again, thank you very much, Bren. Thank you for clearing the air, and thank you very much for watching and listening to wherever you are consuming this content. We very much appreciate it, and until next time, stay safe.